here at ISS, we have selected 6 learning impacts that we're working on, and these learning impacts we're working on from the toddler's age till grade 12. In early years, these learning impacts are a little bit different, even if they're the same, and we decided to focus on the compelling communicator. And some children in early years, they don't communicate so well with the language, either because they're still acquiring language or because they are from another country, they speak another mother tongue. So we know in early years that children express themselves in many different ways. In the Reggio Emilia approach, we talk about the 100 languages, and this is what we wanted to observe. How do children communicate with us when they play? So we started this project about recyclables when we saw some children who were like using old pieces of cardboard in my room, and were starting to build things with them. So we gathered the children and we realized that that's what they wanted to do. We saw that little spark of interest, and from that we built a whole project on recyclables. And we thought, let's see through this project how children communicate with us. What are their needs? What do they need to do? What do they want to learn? So we gathered lots of recyclables with the children's help from the parents. And we just gave them all these recyclables and glue and tape and no other direction, and just let them explore. So while we were observing them, we saw 3 very important trends. We call these schemas. A schema is a repetitive behavior that shows that the children are always doing the same thing, and it's a way for them to make connections in their brain and to learn deeper. So the schemas that we saw was first the schema of transformation, when they were transforming these boxes into different objects. The schema of enveloping, they were using the masking tape to envelop and wrap around the recyclables. And the schema of connecting, putting things together using glue and tape. So we realized that looking at this schema, that was our way to understand what the children needed. So how can we go deeper into the learning through these schemas? So the best way to do is to use material and give them meaningful material. So we decided to select some materials for each schema for the children to go deeper into their learning and exploration. We also noticed some different trends and behaviors from the children when they were building. We had some children who were very quick builders, and they were building lots and lots of different things. Then we had the steady builders who were starting with tiny little things, very detail oriented, and added and kept on adding and adding. And then we saw what we called pollinators. These are children who are observing, and they will go from one child to another one and share their ideas with them, observe what they were doing. So, and finally we had the observers, the ones who were like just staying back and looking at what the other ones were doing. We also made sure we had good reflection moments with the children, the whole group, where we were asking open-ended questions to see how we could go further, deeper into their thinking and exploration. Once they finished their first we finished the first phase, which was the exploration phase. We asked the children to draw their construction on a piece of paper just using a pencil. And we knew it wouldn't be easy because some of the constructions were very complicated and lots of details. So that was a very difficult work for some of them. And we saw different strategies from the children. So some children were looking at the construction from the side and were just drawing the shape of it. Some children were looking from a vantage point from the top and were drawing what they could see. Some children, they had decorations on the boxes, like on the Lego box, and they drew exactly what was on the decoration, what was on the Lego box. And some children, they even added details to their constructions through the drawing. For example, Summer, she added wheels to her truck that she obviously couldn't figure out how to do in reality. After that, we decided to delve a little bit deeper into the schema of connecting. So we gave yarn and wire to the children. They were a little bit, especially with wire, they didn't really know what to do, so we let them explore. We asked open-ended questions again, and we realized that despite the fact they had wire and yarn, they kept on using the tape and the glue. So we decided to get the glue and the tape away. They were not available anymore, and they just had to explore and figure out what to do with these two new materials. So they learned from each other. They realized that they could poke through cardboard with the wire to connect things together. They could twist it. The yarn was a little bit more complicated because they had to tie knots. So they learned from each other, or they asked their friends to help them. And finally, after different sessions exploring connection through wire and yarn, the children didn't ask for tape and glue anymore, and we didn't use tape or glue anymore till the end of the project. What we saw as well, where they were experimenting and exploring, we could see some skills which are very important to develop. We saw working memory in action. They had to remember that for example, if you want to connect two things together using wire, you have to remember what strategies you can use. Making a hole, poking a hole, going through these things together, and use that strategy into in another way. As well, when we removed the tape and the glue, we asked the children to inhibit their first impulse, which was using glue and tape, which was easier. And some of them showed some frustration. So getting over that frustration needs some resilience and also risk-taking. There was cognitive flexibility, because it was a pivot when they realized that, okay, I can't use the glue and the tape, I need to find another way to do it. So they were like solving a problem, trying to figure out some strategies to do that. And finally, there's metacognition. They're learning, they understand how they learn, and they can explain how they do learn, and they think about their learning. When we were done with that project, when we were done with the language of wire and thread, we took again a little moment to reflect with them, and also to reflect on what we were observing, and we noticed that the children kept on doing lots and lots of projects. And we wanted them to focus more on one project, and to keep on adding things to them, like artists do in reality. So we asked them not to create any new project, but either put things together or keep on working on just one piece of them. What we saw as well is that children collaborated very much. They connected ideas, they started connecting their projects together, and working in teams. And also we saw lots of persistence, because when you ask the children to go back always to the same piece of material, it requires persistence and getting over boredom as well, because you always have to figure out, something more creative to bring back to that piece of art. So it was time now to go into the schema of enveloping. So we gave different kinds of wrapping papers. We gave also some fabric. fishnet fabric, shiny fabric, but mostly fabric was quite thin and you could sometimes see through. And the children were very enthusiastic playing and using this fabric, but very interestingly, they didn't really use it to wrap their constructions. And they were more using it as an added piece of it, like using it either as a little veil coming on it or draping it, but never wrapping it around. And we were wondering if that was because they didn't really want to hide their construction under the fabric. So that's why we gave them some bubble wrap. And we see, okay, maybe with bubble wrap, it will be easier for them to wrap, and we can still see some of their construction, and still then they still use the bubble wrap to maybe put a little, like here you can see it hanging, and you can see the paper also hanging and the bubble wrap. It's not really enveloping. Here is the same. She used the fabric, to hide things underneath, but not really to wrap things around. The wrapping here, you can really see it with the tape. But then that little boy didn't use any bubble wrap or any fabric to wrap around his construction. Finally, we wanted to finish with the schema of transformation. And how can they transform what they've already done even more? And we decided to use different kinds of paints. And the children, there was a whole variety of paints, and they could choose which color they wanted. If it was glitter paint, metallic paint, acrylic paint, or just regular paint. And again, we didn't give any directions. They could paint whatever they wanted. So very interestingly, some children painted, were like adventurous enough to paint on surfaces they were not used to paint on. For example, here on the bubble wrap. Or over here, that is the first girl who was very creative in painting the fabric. Some other children were very engrossed in mixing colors. It's Monty here. This little boy spent at least 1 hour mixing colors, and every time there was another color and another color. So it brought a second layer of transformation. He was not only transformation his structure, he was also transformation the color. And he kept on adding, and he had a very scientific way to say it, because he was always saying, oh, I'm using that color, I'm mixing it with this color, and then I get this color. And he was adding layers and layers and layers on top of it. So there was a real process of transformation there. This boy who did that creation, when he joined our class in February, and we had already started that project, and he was really at a loss. He really didn't know what to do. He chose that box, and he was saying, what do I do with that box? And we, by asking him open-ended question, while encouraging him and supporting him, he started to really become more experimental. And that boy has used almost all of the materials we provided with. And he became so self-confident. He poked holes, he found ways to put the wire. He did really an amazing job. And you can see he became so creative while doing it. And then we have these 3 boys who decided to connect all of their constructions together. Then we have children who were working together on something, like these 2 boys, they work together. But it's very interesting, when I interviewed them, not together at the same time, they both had a different way to explain what they did. For example, for one child, Roy, it's a jet plane. For Nansen, it's a robot computer. So although they work together, they still have a different idea of what they made. What is interesting as well is these are some of our youngest children as well. This girl here, she's done something very intricate with lots of details. And she was hiding details. She made this flap and she's hiding details underneath. And that is the power for her charging station. And the charging station is somewhere here. So that girl, she worked on that construction the whole time. And there's also a very interesting matter of scale here. These are like milkshake makers and coffee makers, so which are like the scale is 1:1. But this is a swimming pool, which is super tiny when you think about the scale-wise, which is just next to it. So it's very interesting how they conceive what they do. This girl here, Summer, very much into the wrapping schema. And again, you can see she hasn't used any fabric at all or any bubble wrap to wrap. And her construction is a trash truck booster. And she explains she explains the mechanics of it, and she will tell you where the water is coming from, and that water is the power that will make that trash truck work. And the flower here, when it opens, gives more power to it. This little girl, when she drew her own, when she drew her construction, she was amazing. She added all the details. She didn't say what it was, but she said, oh, here is a piece of yarn, or here is this box, or here is this fabric. So it's super detailed with all the bits and pieces she used. This is Alice's work. Alice, it's like when she works in the classroom with the blocks, she always builds in a very horizontal way. There's barely anything vertical there. And she kept on adding things together. And when we asked the children to keep something, just one piece, we realized all of the pieces were connected to each other. And it was heartbreaking to ask her just to choose a piece. So we decided to leave it like that. And when she had to draw her construction, you could see she was clearly overwhelmed by the quantity of details and different shapes, and her drawing is the simplest drawing. And it's very interesting because that girl's drawings in general are very, very detailed and very precise. But you can see she used lots of different materials, and she was attracting other children. Her work was attracting other children, the observers, who liked to come and observe, and then they took part and they collaborated with her. And we have a little boy who at the start was clearly an observer, and he kept on, and then he came to collaborate with her, and eventually he managed to do his own construction. It took him a long time, and he's again one of our youngest, and he managed to do his own rocket ship. He used the tape, he used the wire to connect things together, he used different materials. So the learning curve of that child was very impressive, starting from just observing, then collaborating, and then doing his own construction and even talking about it. Which else can I? That boy here, Oscar, he has been working on exactly the same construction from the start as well, adding and keep on and adding things, and very engrossed in his process. And he found a very creative way to use the yarn to connect things together. He trapped it into the lid here of the milk carton. That girl here, Magnum, she started working on that tiny little piece here. And she took lots of time adding the glitter, very detail-oriented. And again, that's a work that goes over weeks and weeks. It's this very comment on dit, minutieux, minutious, very minutious. And I think the last one here I wanted to show. Elise as well, she has been working on the same piece of art from the start. And if you look at all the colors, just at that she used at the end with the painting, and all the yarn she used, and the piece of fabric, and she as well, she colored the piece of fabric. It's quite amazing. And I really like the bubble wrap with a mix of colors.